What's up, everyone? Welcome to Retro Gaming Rewind. You are now tuned in to Murray and J08, and we have a very cool topic for this episode. I've been working on this episode for a while, and those of you that know, I have a audio-only podcast over on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, Spotify, called The Pixel Corner. And I've been working on the return of that show. And this was one of the topics that I've actually been working on. So I said, well, that show's not coming out just yet because I'm still recording it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use this topic for a Retro Gaming Rewind topic. It's the games that every collector and retro gamer should own, or at some point should own, right? Because let's be honest, these games are hard to find, they're getting harder to find, and they're going up in price, even some of the most common ones. That's mostly what these are. I mean, they're the games that you really would think of that a collector would have. They're nothing like really obscure or like zany. We could talk about those games in another episode. Games you should own Part 2 Extended. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to do that. But these are like the obvious ones. These are like what I think as a collector everybody should own. If you're a really big gaming collector, this is what, I would expect at some point you have. Now, I own all these. I probably multiple copies on a lot of them. And it's a fun thing to do. And you know what? I always say this to people. Collecting doesn't have to be done all at once. It's something to do over time, especially nowadays, as games and everything are going up in price and getting harder to find. Even games that are so common, now they're sought after. So, I have like a checklist. And, I say, go into the retro shops or the, game stops where they have the little used area for like the DS games and NES games and everything. Or if you have like play and trade still in your area, I don't even know if they're around. That's where I used to go. Or pawn shops or thrift shops, flea markets, eBay, and all these other places. And you look. And I know Seattle, I got a lot of buddies in the gaming community on YouTube that live in Seattle, or that know people in the Seattle area that have a lot of gaming places. And you have a checklist, and one by one, it's fun. You go down the list and you get what you want. But I always tell people, shop smart, shop for deals, and get what you need. But this is just a fun list that I made. By no means is this a definitive list, and I'm probably missing a lot of stuff off this list, and I'm probably going to kick myself after I record it because I was drunk when I wrote it. But I mean, it's a pretty decent list, so you can add to it. You can subtract to it. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm just saying, coming from Murray and J08, this is what I think is the top of the top. The creme de la creme. You know what I mean by that? It's, the best of the best. Let's get right into it. So, retro games every collector must own. So say I went into your gaming room, right? And I'm looking on your shelves. Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES. This is a must, and to me, the holy grail of the Murray and J08 Museum. That's right, I have multiple museums and game rooms in the Murray and J08 studio. Not like Hancock, that phony with his fake museum. Ooh. Donate to my museum. 2029. right? So I definitely would say the Super Mario Brothers 3 on the NES. Zelda Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Yeah. This is definitely in the holy grail of the Murray N.J. Waite Museum. And these two that I just mentioned are in my top all-time games. I mean, they're the top of the top. Every time you'll see a list on here, every time you see a gaming award, or I'm talking about my best of the best all-time games, these two are mentioned because I truthfully believe they're the best games ever made. So yeah, Zelda Link to the Past. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the SNES. Absolutely. This is one of my all-time favorite Street Fighter games, but also one of my all-time favorite games. I can't say enough about Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Back in the day when I went to the Jersey Shore on the boardwalk, this was the game that I played when I went into the arcade. This was the game that I went to the rental store and rented on the weekends. This was where I spent most of my childhood playing this game. Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. This is another amazing 2D platformer in the Mario universe. And when everybody got their Super Nintendo on Christmas morning, this is what you were playing. And very rightfully so, it's an amazing game. Myst on the PC. I got a beautiful boxed copy, mint, of Myst that I bought off of somebody on eBay that I won on a bid. Myst is one of the all-time puzzle games and one of my favorite today. And I think stands the test of time. There's been many different iterations of it and remasters and making it 3D, making it in VR. It got ported to a lot of things since the PC days, but Myst on the PC was a must. Is a must to have in your console collection. PC boxed games in general are amazing to collect. I'm going to have a special in the future. Just on PC boxed games, that's another topic. And PC boxed games that you should own. That's a great thing to have to be as a collector to own. Back in the day, everybody knows the PC box days. They had these big boxes with beautiful covers and beautiful artwork. A lot of people say, "Oh, Sean, you're not like these big YouTubers with these massive subs, these retro collectors and these retro gamers." I guarantee you, I can put all of them a run for their money. I've had people that run game shops come here and say, "I've never seen somebody own this many video games. I got bins and bins because I have no place to put them. I have rooms and closets full." I'm talking thousands. So, and none of that e-begged shit either. All from me and from my childhood. Final Fantasy VII on the PS1. What a classic to own. What a classic to own. This is definitely a PlayStation 1 classic. Final Fantasy VII. Another thing to note, too, they later came out with special packaging that was like the greatest hits. But I'm talking the original box art, the original packaging. Kirby's Dream Land on the Gamecube. One of my favorite games of all time. One of my favorite Kirby's. And one of my favorite GameCube games. Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. Super Mario 64. A must own. I know that game is going up and up and up. To have a nice complete boxed copy of that would be really something. Earthbound, again, wow, that's a collector. But Earthbound is an amazing, amazing game. Mother, they call it. And I'm not talking about Danzig. I'm talking about Earthbound. And it's super collectible now. Sonic 2 on the Genesis. one of these staples of the Genesis and the platforming genre. The Blue Blur himself. Castlevania on the NES, a must-own as a collector. Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2, I put on the Genesis. Another series franchise that I would play on the boardwalk as a child growing up. And another game that I used to rent. A game, actually, believe it or not, I used to play in the PC when the home version came out. I used to play Mortal Kombat 1 on floppy disk. And I remember calling my cousin up. I had a Tandy X86 with turbo boost. An MMX chip. And Sound Blaster. I was like Hot Shot Man. I was like, you want to see a rig? Back then we didn't call them rigs. We just called them PCs. You were lucky to have a color monitor. I used to have people come over to see like Monkey Island and they would be like, or like Doom. Doom was big. So they would come over and they would see Mortal Kombat. So that was it. So I called my cousin and I said, man, Mortal Kombat on the PC is unbelievable. He goes, I know. And we were talking back and forth, and I'll never forget the look on my face when I was playing that on my computer. So that's definitely something to own. Mario Kart 64 on the N64. What a staple of the N64 collection. Star Fox on the SNES. Remember it had the FX chip? Star Fox, for its time, was one of the most graphically beautiful, intense games I've ever seen. I remember my uncles were over that day, and I popped that in, and their jaws dropped. Star Fox was something that nobody had ever seen before. Resident Evil Director's Cut on the PlayStation 1. I'll always remember the intro to Resident Evil, that QuickTime movie. I'll never forget it. Did you know that I was obsessed with the intro, especially the part where they introduce all the names of the characters? Jill Valentine, Rebecca Chambers, Chris Redfield, Albert Wesker. That blew me away. And at the time, we never really saw anything like that. And it had all the, I was a PC gamer, so I saw a lot of QuickTime from back in the day, of full motion video, but you didn't really see a lot of that on the console. Maybe like on the 3DO and the CDI, the Panasonic CDI and all that, but this was like really something that you could only do on the PlayStation. Resident Evil was a game that I would play with my dad, and we would rent it, and then I finally bought my own copy, and I just couldn't put Resident Evil down. I was just hooked. And I was always scared. But that first zombie, when you go up the stairs and he's eating the body and he looks at you, I was scared shitless as a kid. Donkey Kong Country on the SNES, one of my all-time favorite games. Tempest 2000 on the Atari Jaguar. Asteroids on the Atari 2600. These are the staples of gaming. These are in the Holy Grail. You have to own them. Tetris on the Game Boy. I didn't know what version to put of Tetris, but I always loved it on the Game Boy. I used to take it on the bus. Tekken 3 on the PS1. This was mind-blowing. SSX Tricky on the GameCube. I loved all the SSX games, all the snowboarding games, but Tricky on the GameCube. I believe I played a lot of it on the Xbox too. I had both copies, but GameCube was where I mostly played it. That's definitely you must own. Great soundtrack too. Dreamcast, Sonic Adventure, one of my all-time favorite 3D Sonics. That game was mind-blowing for its time. That was like the first time we ever seen anything like that. The Dreamcast, one of my favorite systems. In my opinion, ahead of its time. A beautiful system that was short-lived, that had so much potential. Sonic Adventures was a showcase of that. And still to this day, I think that game is just dreamy looking. Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. That was another game that I saw demoed at Walmart for the GameCube before it came out. And I was just in complete awe. So that's definitely something to own in your collection. Doom on PC. We were talking before about PC boxed games. I am going to have a special on that. Doom is definitely one to own on the PC. Again, Wolfenstein 3D on the PC. My naming. My naming. What an awesome game. Just awesome. With the German shepherds coming after you in the jail cells and just Hitler and all that. Just an amazing experience. Gran Turismo on the PS1, there was nothing like it. The variety of cars, tracks, graphics. Gran Turismo was just, this is what racing is all about. This is the future of video game racing. Mega Man 2 on the NES, must own. Skyrim on the 360, I'm moving up a little. Elder Scrolls Skyrim will always be one of my all-time favorite games. It's been ported to everything. Your refrigerator, your car dashboard, your coffee pot, your windowsill, your floor tiles, your watch, your treadmill. But Skyrim is Skyrim for a reason. And Todd Howard will tell you, it just works. Gotta own a copy of Skyrim. Fable 3 on the 360. What an amazing game, Peter Molyneux. I mean, it's just... Fable 3 is always going to be one of my favorite Fable games. And it was really an adventure that I'll never forget. You gotta own a copy of that in your collection. I'm going to be checking. Halo 1 on the Xbox, Combat Evolved. That's a staple. You must own that. That's on the checklist. That would be like coming to your house and you got posters of women, but you don't have Kelly Ripa. All right? I'm going to give you check marks. Check marks or fines? Which one is it? But Halo is just an unbelievable game. And you must own it on the OG Xbox. Halo 3 on the 360. That game was mesmerizing and really showed some of the potential of both the Halo series and the technology of the 360. Halo 3 was one of my favorites. Spent a lot of time in Halo 3, definitely. Space Invaders on the 2600. Pokemon Red and Blue on the Game Boy. God knows how many hours I've spent on both of them. Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii. This was something that was just unbelievable. Between the graphics, the Wii, the motion controls, going upside down, gravity, the whole gravity mechanic. Super Mario Galaxy is really something. Okay. Animal Crossing on the Wii. Probably thousands of hours on that. What would that have been? City Folk? Yeah. A Metal Gear Solid on PS1. Tribute to Hideo Kojima-san. NBA Jam TE Tournament Edition. I put on the Super NES, but I played them on everything, including the arcade, including the original NBA Jam. But this is the one to own. So I'll be checking. This would be like running a lookalike contest, but you didn't have one for Joyce DeWitt. NBA Jam Tournament Edition is just an amazing game. Probably one of the games I spent the most time with. We literally had clubs when I was a kid for NBA Jam where we would meet up and talk about this damn game. Imagine a sports game, a basketball game. Like, who knew that this game would become such a phenomenon? I had books, I had guides, I had notes. We did the codes, we did the big head mode, we did the secret characters, we did the special announcements. We would have teams, we would have meetups after school. Me and my friends would talk about it. My family, my dad, everybody was into NBA Jam. It took over. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And I would go down the shore and I would play it on the arcade. And NBA Jam was just, it was huge. Pac-Man on the ColecoVision. GoldenEye 007 on the N64. Another must-own. Zelda Ocarina of Time on the N64. Another amazing game. Another amazing game that it's so hard to pick. You could just say every Zelda game, right? I mean, there's some people that are saying Breath of the Wild. I tried to keep this retro. But I think, as far as the 3D, the newer Zeldas, because I mentioned A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time was one of my favorites. And that game, I was so zoned in. And I remember everybody that had come over, friends, cousins, family, were like drawn in with me and would sit down. Even people I remember that weren't into video games were so into that game. It just took you on a whole experience. So definitely Zelda Ocarina of Time on the N64. Must have it in your collection. Super Mario Kart on the SNES. Outrun on the Genesis. What a gem. Sonic 1 on the Genesis. You have to have it. Whether it was packaged with your Genesis or, well, a little E-Town Concrete there. Or, you got it afterward or whatever. You got to have Sonic the Hedgehog 1. Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PS1. That's a must to own. Half-Life 2, another great PC game to own on PC, boxed copy. Shadow of the Colossus on PS2. That game was well ahead of its time. Tomb Raider on the PS1, an absolute classic. The start of the Tomb Raider series. Actually, I used to play that on PC with various patches. Resident Evil 4 on the Gamecube. An amazing Resident Evil game, one of my favorites. Kingdom Hearts on the PS2. The beginning of the Kingdom Hearts series, which then became an epic saga, an epic franchise. God of War, enough said, on the PS2. Unbelievable. Definitely one to own. One of my favorite retro games to own is the Twisted Metal on PS1. All the Twisted Metals, but I put Twisted Metal 1 here on the PlayStation 1. I'm talking big boxed copies. And what I mean by that is that PlayStation, before they had the regular square jewel cases, they had the long box, such as Resident Evil and Twisted Metal. They had the long boxes for the launch. And that's how the games came in the beginning during the launch of the PlayStation. I have the original Twisted Metal in the long box with the sponge. That's definitely the copy to own. Contra Hardcore on the Genesis and Echo the Dolphin on the Genesis. And that's just off the top of my head, the list I made. I'd love to know what you guys think of that list and what you guys would add to that list or take away. And what's your custom list? What games do you think every retro collector needs to own in their gaming room or their gaming library? What would you say is a definitive list of games? And how would you rate my list? Take care, guys. Until the next Retro Gaming Rewind with Sean, I'll be seeing you again soon. Be safe, guys. Be well. Take care.